many of our people who are thinking more deeply and more broadly, looking at it as it actually is, and are beginning to see it more in the international context and the relation that it has with the African struggle, a human rights struggle, or the struggle for human rights. And as such, we can then take it into the United Nations
and bring about the freedom of these people by any means necessary.
On May 25th, 2020, my brother was tortured and murdered by 4 police officers in Minneapolis, Minnesota, in the United States. My brother was unarmed and was accused of passing a counterfeit $20 bill. The officer showed no mercy, no humanity, and tortured my brother to death in the middle of the street in Minneapolis with a crowd of witnesses watching and begging them to stop showing us black people the same lesson yet again: black lives do not matter in the United States of America. When people dared to raise their voice and protest for my brother, they were tear gassed, run over with police vehicles. Several people lost eyes and suffered brain damage to rubber bullets. Peaceful protesters were shot and killed by police. Journalists were beaten and blinded when they tried to show the world the brutality happening at the protests. When people raise their voices to protest the treatment of black people in America, they are silenced, they are shot and killed. The sad truth is that the case is not unique. The way you saw my brother tortured and murdered on camera is the way black people are treated by police in America. You watched my brother die. That could have been me. I am my brother's keeper. You in the United Nations are your brothers and sisters keepers in America. And you have the power to help us get justice for my brother George Floyd. I am asking you to help him. I'm asking you to help me. I am asking you to help us, black people in America. I hope that you would consider establishing an independent commission of inquiry to investigate police killings of black people in America and the violence used against peaceful protesters.
Hello everyone, welcome to We Charge Colonialism. We are an organization of Pan-Africanists who are calling for the recognition that Africans in the United States are being colonized by not just global white supremacy, but by the structures of the United States government. So if you want to learn more, if you want to join in our efforts, you can send us an email, wechargecolonialism@gmail.com, or you could also visit our website, wechargecolonialism.org. So let's talk about what's going on in the United Nations. So I did a video recently where I think it's actually on my African Esquire channel, but I did the video where I was discussing the fact that Africans really kind of have been showing out a lot more for people who have African descent in the United States, and we see another step towards that. So, you know, again, We Charge Colonialism, we're taking on an initiative where we want to start organizing our people, hopefully a coalition of Pan-Africanist organizations. I've been reaching out to several organizations, but we're trying to build a coalition where we can come together for the purpose of petitioning the African Union for recognition of Africans in the United States being a member of the Union. So obviously right now you could obviously be an observer as a member of the African diaspora. However, we don't just want to be observers. The ultimate goal would be to be full members and therefore have some backing outside of the United States jurisdiction whenever we are facing things like the George Floyd murder and the many things that we will face afterwards, because already a lot of people have been killed in the U.S. and so obviously this thing is now over. So that's really what we've been doing. That's what we've been pushing. If you are in a Pan-Africanist organization and you want to join these efforts, you know, please hit us up, wechargecolonialism@gmail.com. Again, if you just want to be a member or if you just want to, you know, connect with us, you know, also hit us up with that email. This to me is a good showing for us and for that cause, you know, because what we're starting to see is that there is a recognition that we, first of all, are African people. And you can see this in the fact that the whole reason why this issue of police brutality was brought to the United Nations was because of 54 African countries backing a petition from George Floyd's family to actually be able to debate the issue of police brutality. Again, 54 African countries were the ones who pushed this initiative, and because of that, there were some debates today. I didn't get to see all the debates, but I did see some, and you know, the interesting thing is when you have colonized country calling out the colonizer, or or colonizer calling out colonizer. So for example, you had China like calling out the US, and we know that China is in no position to be actually out here, saying things as far as the United States practice. They said, the delegation of China, we are against, racial oppression of people who are of African descent, and we're looking at that like, oh really? We really, really like to see that more, because you don't show it. You actually benefit a lot from us. You benefit from our disorganization. That's really where they benefit, is our disorganization as a people. And you've seen what happened recently with the COVID-19 incident. There were some Nigerians in China, and all these Chinese people were basically doing all these things to these people, evicting them. There's been beatings. There's just been so much oppression against the people of African descent inside of China. And until the Africans actually were like, hey, that's not cool, they were going to just let that happen. They were going to just try to ignore it. They were going to try to keep it moving. But we are the ones who pushed it to the forefront. So we see that they, first of all, are not sincere, and that's the problem with the United Nations, is that you have a lot of people who are benefiting from racism, benefiting from white supremacy, pretending to be human rights advocates. And that's always going to be an issue with the United Nations. But regardless, it is an interesting showing whenever you have the United States being in the hot seat, the United States being a member of the Security Council, and the Security Council having like this much power, and the rest of the people having like this much power. It's always interesting to see that. So yeah, basically George Floyd's family, they put the petition. They wanted to present their they wanted to present, I guess, to the United Nations the issue of police brutality, and so now there are debates being held about that. So it's still early to see what's going to happen with that, but I'm going to just give you guys some takeaways as far as what is happening already and what could happen. So obviously what we see is happening is global solidarity with Africans in America, which is very important, especially for our causes. We charge colonialism. We are saying that we are being colonized by the same exact system that colonized Africa, that colonized the Caribbean, that colonized the world. We are being colonized by that same exact system. So to pretend that we should be left separate, to pretend that we should not also have some type of backing outside of the jurisdiction of the United States, that's literally to abandon us to the whims of white supremacy. But what's good is that we've seen a great response from people in Africa who do have that recognition, who do want to see some type of justice done. And that's important recognition, because this doesn't just go to being recognized by the AU, but this also goes to things for a lot of our people who want repatriation back to Africa, who want settlement. There's already been so much movement as of lately of Africans in America saying we're going back, we're not staying here, and actually being able to move back. I mean, there are settlements like in Ghana, like straight up, African American neighborhoods in Ghana already. Different places, Gambia, Senegal, all types of places where our people have repatriated back to. So this is a good showing for anyone who wants to, and I already think that before this there was certainly a willingness. You had the year of return in Ghana, obviously, so there's certainly an open and a welcoming of people who want to. But this, I think, pushes it to the next level, because if there's a situation where we want not just certain people to go back, but like a mass exodus, then this is the type of thing that you want to happen. You want to have a recognition, almost like you're seeking asylum from an oppressive force. You want that recognition that you as a people are being persecuted, and you need some type of domicile from that persecution. So that's a really good showing of that. Another takeaway from this, this obviously is not going to move the needle, as far as the United States policy. So, that's not a downer to me. That should be a common sense thing, because the United States, again, is a member of the Security Council. They're a permanent member of the Security Council. They have the right to veto I believe any UN resolution. If you're a permanent member of the Security Council, you have the right to veto it. So if all the other countries said, all right, we want this to happen, but one member of the Security Council said, no, we're not cool with that, then, it's not going to happen. So, of course, this is not actually something that's substantive as far as going to change the situation. But another thing that is important, and I alluded to this in a previous video, is that we have to have the situation where we are putting heat on, or we're putting America essentially in a hot seat on an international scale. The domestic, it eases a lot easier, but when you have the image of being an oppressive force in the world, let's think of a country like North Korea. They could do a lot of things to try to get things right, but it's not going to happen so easily. Think of a country, any country where they told us that the people are evil. Those people have such a stench, whenever they are trying to self-govern, when they're trying to do things, just because of the label that has been put on them. So because of that, that's why countries, even countries that do have power, like the United States or like Western countries, they actually do care about being looked at as ambivalent, or looked at as having some type of affinity for human rights. Everyone talks about human rights, even when human rights are horrible. You had China, and let's forget about how China treats people of African descent. Let's think about how China treats their own people. Their own people are essentially like slaves. So that to me is a showing that obviously a lot of hypocrisy is going on, and because of that, we know that the power dynamics in the UN are in such a way that we are not going to be able to shift things by debating in the UN. So that brings me to the conclusion, though, if we can't shift things in that type of way, how do we shift things? I truly believe that we shift things as a people by building our coalition with Africa, building our relationship with Africa. And even though Africa is certainly far from perfect, certainly still colonized, there's enough people who have a recognition of what it is to be African, what it is to be black, what it is to be oppressed by white supremacy. There's enough people to have that recognition to drive a force, I believe, that would be corrective of the United States policies. It would be corrective of other Western policies. But that's not going to happen if we're only thinking of things as a people who are isolated, of a people who are without allies, of people who are without people who we can go to whenever we are in need. If that's our belief, if that's who we think we are, then we essentially are no threat to this government. We're no threat to the structure of white supremacy. We're literally easy to deal with, and think about it, they've been dealing with us like we're easy to deal with. They enslaved an entire people. They put Jim Crow in place. They put a prison industrial complex so that they can pretend that they aren't practicing Jim Crow while they're still practicing Jim Crow. They look at us like we're easy to deal with because we are easy to deal with. We haven't grown our coalition. I think it's very important for us to realize something came out recently about people in the UK, our African brothers and sisters over there. They're facing literally like the same prison industrial complex over there. Now you hear all these people talking about how Europe is so free, how Europe is not racist, and yet here we are, every single place in the world where we go, we're being treated the same way. So how effective do you think that population of Africans would be advocating for their freedom in the UK by themselves? That would not be very effective. But how effective would it be if they were advocating with us, advocating with them, and them advocating for us, and then Africa advocating for them and us, and then the Caribbean advocating for them and us? I mean, that's where we're talking about when we say Pan-Africanism or die. We have to understand that any other solution leaves us in a position where we're easy to deal with problem. You can easily be erased. You can easily be oppressed. You can easily be dealt with in a certain way. So what we want to do is put ourselves in a position where we're not easy to deal with, we're not easy to do away with, where we're actually a challenge to the system that oppresses us, and where we can actually obtain freedom and liberation from that way. So that is what we are seeking. That is what we need. Anything less than that is cop out. Anything less than that is not a solution. Anything less than that is people telling you, all you need is for them to just stop shooting black people. If they stop shooting black people, you're still just as oppressed as you would had they not shot one of us. Because guess what? Black people are still the poorest. Black people are still the ones with the worst health outcomes. Black people are still the ones with the worst education. We're still killing ourselves because we're unable to take care of ourselves. These are the issues that we deal with, and without us recognizing that this is not just about police brutality. This is not even about people understanding that your life matters. It's bigger than that. This is an issue of power. This is an issue of self-governance. This is an issue of self-determination. If you don't understand that, then you are essentially believing their lie that all they have to do is stop shooting you, and then all your problems will go away. So that's what I have to say about that. We have to keep pushing. We have to keep talking. I really am hoping, not just through this coalition that we're trying to form, but just in different spheres, that we're continuing our relationship with Africa more now than ever. Like, it's ironic because the ADOS thing popped up about 2 or 3 years ago, but more now than ever, after that, you just see African global solidarity so much stronger and getting stronger and stronger and stronger. That's what we want to see. That's what we have to push for, and we're going to get that by continuing to let our voices be heard, and also connecting with our brothers and sisters and recognizing that we face a common enemy, we face a common struggle. So that's all I have about this, you guys. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on what's happening with the United Nations? What do you think we can get from it? What can we gain from it? That's all I have, you guys. I will see you in the next video. The Justice Bank. So what is the Justice Bank? I've talked before about the fact that we were trying to do a bail project, but we ended up deciding to do a mutual aid fund. The Justice Bank initiative will essentially take members, and if you would pay a very low monthly membership fee. We're going to keep it low on purpose because we are servicing a people who are the most disenfranchised in this country, the most under attack, and it's not reasonable to expect that there's that someone could pay $30 a month, $50 a month, whenever you are of that group. Now, when you become a member, we're going to have a trial period, maybe say after 3 or 6 months, whatever, you are eligible to petition us for help with your expenses. Now, what type of people who are targeted from the prison industrial complex, what type of people would be eligible? Well, because we're doing a mutual aid society, that would be democratic. What we mean is that if you are a member of the Justice Bank, you would have a say in what types of, let's say, charges or offenses that you want to be covered under the Justice Bank. The idea is that all of us are putting our money in collectively because we are a target of the prison industrial complex. Every single day that we walk out, you as a black person, you are seen as a criminal in this country, and that is a fact. And we want to offer a type of protection for our people, and almost like an insurance policy, honestly, that if you do have some type of run-in with the law, if you do have a charge, a criminal charge, that you can count on a mutual aid society to help you and assist you with those types of charges.
Nowhere in the world incarcerates as much as we do. We've seen extremely high rates of exposure to the criminal justice system for African American men with very low levels of schooling. So if we think about black men who were born in the late 1970s and who are growing up through the American prison boom of the 1980s and the 1990s, the chances that they're going to serve time in state or federal prison if they dropped out of high school is about 70%. So going to prison for that group of black men with very low levels of schooling, that's become a normal life event. And that's really only happened in the last 10 years. We're at this point now where there's about 1.2 million African American children with a parent who's incarcerated. That's about 1 in 9.